Whitaker, and thank you so much for coming.
Can everybody hear me? Y'all hear me back? All right. My name is Nick Whitaker. I'm actually a training and development manager now at the News Lab at Google. My title has changed recently, but my job is the same. I travel around the world training journalists, students, entrepreneurs on how to use Google tools to do better storytelling. We have a website, g.co/newslab. If you haven't checked out our site yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. We recently just launched a new version of the site, which includes about 50 different lessons across every single product that Google has. It might be useful for you if you're news gathering or storytelling, whether you're in marketing or journalism or advertisement, or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're just interested in how to get better results from your search experience. We have lessons on our site that we put up for you. We also have a Medium account, which is right up here, Google News Lab. Our Twitter account, where you can find quite a bit of interesting information about how other people are using our tools. And we're always looking for more examples of those. So as you go out in the world and create amazing things with Google tools, stay in touch. Let us know what you're working on. It could be something as just as simple as like retweeting one of your pieces on social media, or we can include them in a presentation, or we can actually create a case study on one of those. So we definitely want to hear from you guys. We also have a YouTube account, Google News Lab, where you'll find FAQ videos, short documentaries, and other information that might be relevant to you to help you get a better understanding of how to use all of this. Well, actually, first of all, who was in the last class with me a minute ago? Good. So this won't be new to many of you. I get the question a lot, why a news lab? What is a news lab? What do we do? I think this goes back to the core kind of fundamental mission statement of the company, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. It's pretty much the same thing that journalists have been doing from way before Google even existed. You go out in the world, you find information that's relevant to you, you make it universally accessible and useful to your readers and to your viewers. But times are changing, technology is changing, the way people are accessing information is changing. Who has a smartphone right now? Who has a desktop computer? Less. Yeah. About over 50% of web traffic today is actually on a mobile device. This is only increasing exponentially in other regions as well as the next 1 million users come online. So in regions like South America, Central America, and India, and China, and Brazil, these populations are expanding and booming. They're getting access to the web. The way that they are experiencing the internet and information is radically different than the way it was when I was growing up, or even the way that it is now the way you were growing up. So we have to change with the times, right? We have to adapt. And I think a little bit of this has to do with a misconception about what our role is within this media ecosystem. Who here is a journalist or wants to be a journalist or work in media in some capacity or another? Who considers themselves a storyteller? Yeah. I never actually called myself a journalist. I always called myself a storyteller. I never felt comfortable using a capital J. I was always like, no, I just tell stories. Right? I'm a documentary filmmaker. I create content. But I think at the core, I was a technologist. Right? I was playing with technology. I was working in technology or some capacity or another. And that was always a good, comfortable space for me. I was a geek growing up. I was the kid pushing the audio-video card around in school. I was playing with new technology as it came out. And most of the journalists that I talk to today, they're asking these same questions. Like, well, should I be using Snapchat? Should I be paying attention to the Twitter moments? Should I be paying attention to these other tools and other devices that are coming out? When do I get involved? When do I get started? What about virtual reality and augmented reality, 360 video? Should I be caring about these things? Are they just a passing fad? And I think at the root of those questions is an anxiety, right? Am I going to be able to keep up? Right? Am I going to be able to stay relevant? Am I going to be able to make money off of this stuff somehow? And I want to try to, as best as I can, to kind of alleviate some of those concerns of these journalists and these people that I work with, and kind of change the mindset a little bit from anxiety and worry and concern to excitement. Right? To be excited about the new technologies that are coming out, and to be excited about experimenting with them. Even if experimenting with them means failing and doing it. Right? I fail all the time. I'm really good at failing. And that's a good thing, because it means I'm learning, pushing my boundaries, I'm trying new things, I'm staying out of a comfort zone. I think as soon as you get comfortable, that's when you start dying inside a little bit. Right? So stay uncomfortable. That's often what I teach people. We are, as a company, responding to some of the things that are going on in the industry right now. Mobile web experience sucks for a lot of people. If you've gone to a website recently and clicked on a piece of news and tried to scroll through that. It takes a long time to load. Pop-up ads float up all over the place. And it's not a particularly great experience for people, especially for all those people who are just now getting online via their mobile devices as the first experience in the web. But what if you're in an environment where bandwidth is really expensive? You know, it takes a lot of money or time to download that information. You're not going to wait. You're going to go get your information elsewhere. So there's things like accelerated mobile pages, which Google created and open source with a lot of other groups in order to make the mobile web better, to make it faster. And there's more information you can find out about our site on that as well. Labs, experimental incubators, things like that have been popping up quite a bit. Right around the same time that Google came to the forefront, we've decided to name ourselves the News Lab at Google. We actually found a whole bunch of additional labs that were popping up around the news ecosystem, which for me is really exciting because that means that there is an entrepreneurial spirit there. There's a spirit of experimentation. People are not just sticking with what was. They're trying new things. They're even like in the logos here, there's like little beakers. It's science, right? It's a little bit closer to magic in some cases, I think. And I think that's really inspiring because that means that the industry is starting to realize that you cannot stay in place in one period of time and think that things will just stay that way forever. Right? You have to adapt and change the things as people demand to do things from you as a company or as a data provider. The type of information that we're receiving is changing too. I think as an audience, we're expecting different inputs, right? Data journalism is becoming more mainstream, where several years ago, if I got a raise of hands and I asked a journalist in a particular room, how many of you are data journalists, I get like 1 or 2 people would raise their hand. Now, if I ask that same question a little bit different way, and I say, how many of you work with data on a regular basis in your job, lots more hands go up. Right? And I think that's a good thing. I mean, it points to the understanding that data is more of an integral part of our day-to-day work. And audiences are starting to understand that. I think there's a literacy to data that most readers have now that they didn't have so many years ago. You can look at a graphic, you can look at a chart, you can understand that there's another piece of information in there. You don't just scan past, you can actually investigate that and ask questions about it. Visually striking storytelling is becoming easier. There's more tools that are available. Google has dozens of these tools that help you take data and visualize it in a way that helps tell your story, in the same way that a picture or a video can help tell a story. I look at data and I look at information provided in data sets as just another person or another thing to ask questions of. We were in a class a little bit ago and we were looking at a couple different data charts, which is really a line graph. You see these dips and moves on a particular graph. And what I immediately do is I ask myself, why did that data change at that particular date and time? There's a story there. There's a story in every data set. And it's your job as a journalist or as a storyteller to ask those questions, figure out what those stories are. And the tools that are becoming available now are making it easier to tell those stories. And in some cases, it's things like immersive storytelling through virtual reality or 360 video, or soon augmented reality. Who here has played Pokemon Go? A couple of you. Immediately after Pokemon Go came out, there's a couple articles that came out after that. People were asking, what is the journalistic relevance of Pokemon Go? And somebody had to write that article. And I think there's a lot of potential relevance for journalists in that, because all news happens someplace, right? So if you have a mobile device, as most of you do, if you're in a place where news is happening or news happened in the past, there's an opportunity there to tell a story, to connect that location and time that you're at with what actually happened in the past. So there's really interesting things that are happening with storytelling. New mediums that are becoming available to help tell stories in different ways. But I think in order for journalists and for newsrooms and for the news industry overall to survive and really move into the future in an effective way, it's going to take journalists and technologists working together. Now, I don't see a distinction between technologists and journalists. I see them as the same thing. You ask different journalists that question, and they say, no, I'm a journalist. Journalist. I'm not a technologist. I'm not a data person, right? I don't know how many times I go into the newsroom and ask somebody, what their biggest anxiety is, and say, I'm not good with computers. That scares me, right? Because what that says is people aren't willing to experiment and play with technology and new things. They're stuck in some kind of older sensibility about what journalism might be. Our team is really taking a look at the tools within Google, and there are many, many of them, dozens of them, taking a look at all of those and saying, how can you use these for storytelling? What I focus mainly on is the education, the training and development areas of the team. I work on curriculum online, both through webinars and videos, and also lessons on our site. I'm working with newsrooms and universities around the world that create better curriculum so that we can get technology into the hands of journalists who need it to tell their stories more effectively. We also work and do trainings in person. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But the other two sections of our team are broken into two other categories. One being trends. Who here has used or seen Google Trends before? Who's used Google Search before? Yeah. So Google Trends is basically a look into, or a lens, or a dashboard to keep your finger on the pulse of what people are searching for. So when you go onto Google Search and you search for things, and all of you go online and search for things, when real things happen in the real world, you're basically contributing to this largest data set in the world that's available to humankind right now, Google Search. Right? And Google Trends gives you the ability to look at that and find trends and get an idea for how people's interest around a particular topic is changing over time. We'll get into that in a little bit and show you some examples of how you can tell stories with that. But it's a really powerful resource, one that I think most people don't really think about. They just think about Google Search as that thing that you go to when you have a question. But it's this really interesting snapshot of humanity right now. Programs is the third category that we focus on. That's basically everything that doesn't fit into the other two categories, but we look at issues that are happening within the news ecosystem and we find solutions for those. Right now we're focusing quite a bit on the elections. I'm sure you guys have heard there's an election going on. Is everybody registered to vote? Yeah, everybody voting? Yes. Go out and vote. Your vote counts. Did you know that Texas is a swing state right now? Yeah. Go out and vote, folks. It's important. We focus on different issues that are relevant to the particular time and place that we're focusing on. We've been focusing a lot on virtual reality, things like crisis reporting and elections this year. We're moving on from 2017 to a few different areas, including things like trust and verification. Who here has ever shared or seen somebody share a photo or a video that ended up turning out to be false? Yeah. Who here has gone to Snopes before? Yeah. I do that almost daily. Usually when somebody from the town I grew up in posts something online, I'm like, no. Share the Snopes thing, like that's not true. But it's a serious problem in journalism today. Did that photo, did that video take place at that protest in that location in that period of time, like the person that posted it said that it did? Or was that just a hoax? You guys have probably seen the shark in the water that happens every time there's a flood. It's the same shark in the same water. So you're like, oh God, it's a shark. It's not, it's fake. It doesn't happen. Or the tornado, every time there's a tornado, someone posts this like crazy tornado with lightning bolts coming out of it, the shark flying out of it, and you're like, no, that's not real. That's fake news. But those are easy things to spot, right? Those are easy things to take out as being fake or not real. The real danger becomes when politicians, when journalists, when storytellers are putting news out and calling it real, calling it truthful or factual. And what I think that does is it erodes at a very core level our trust in people who are providing this information to us. So we're putting together research, we're putting together training materials on how to better verify or fact check information so that you aren't victim of false news. And also you're not putting false news out there. Data journalism is another category that we're focusing on, taking a look at obviously the largest data set that we have available, which is Google Search, and finding ways to get that into the hands of people so that they can tell stories themselves. Immersive storytelling is another focus area that we're looking at right now. Taking a look at some of the experts around the world in this group called the Journalism 360 Coalition, which are experts in virtual reality, 360 video, who are then putting out best practices, thought leadership, and examples for people to follow so that they can take the few next steps into the world of virtual reality. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And then inclusive storytelling, which I think is another big focus area, making sure that the voices that are being raised up, that are being heard within the news ecosystem are not just all old white men. I think unfortunately, especially in the newer mediums, like immersive storytelling, you see the same people over and over again, the same types of people, the same types of voices. And I think that's really a shame. And we're working towards that. So we're working with groups like the First Draft Coalition, which is a group of verification and fact checkers around the world who are putting thought leadership and education out there about fact checking. We're working with folks like Simon Rogers, who's a data editor on our team, folks like Alberto Cairo, who is a data visualizer and a data researcher, who does some amazing work to help people learn about data journalism. We're working with groups like the Journalism 360 Coalition, the Google Earth Outreach team, the YouTube team, the Google VR teams, to, again, figure out what the new language of this communication that we're calling immersive storytelling is, so other creators can learn from that And then on the inclusive storytelling piece, not only is it about lifting up the voices of people that might not have their voice heard, but also focusing on providing training and resources and education and development support to those groups so that they are able to do the news that they need to get out there more easily. As far as training and development goes, there's a lot of different ways that we provide that. I've actually traveled around to about 150 different newsrooms across 38 different countries. I've trained well over 40,000 journalists. That's a lot of hotels and taxi cabs and airports and podiums and stages and things like that. But honestly, it's probably the most fun job I've ever had. I love it because I see the action of going out there and training a journalist represented almost immediately by the work that they do. Right? So I get to see the needle move on a regular basis. And that excites me. It means I'm helping others do their job better. And it makes me really happy. But I can't be everywhere, and our team can't be everywhere, so we work with others like SBJ and Pointer to train others for us. Right? So we're working with journalists around the country, and we have a few other people around the world that we're training to train on our behalf. If you're a member of SBJ, or if you're not, you should go ahead and subscribe. To be a member, you could actually be a trainer for SBJ in the future yourself. We're also looking for student ambassadors within universities. So there's a lot of different opportunities for you to plug in and get involved. You can also check out on our website. So you asked me earlier, there are internships at the News Lab. Well, unfortunately, I wish we had an internship. I need like 10 interns right now. But we have fellowships instead. So there's a new fellowship round that's coming up pretty soon. If you visit our site at g.co/newslab, you can learn. You can learn how to become a fellow and actually get put into other nonprofits and other organizations where you can learn about what's going on in the industry right now. I mentioned our website at g.co/newslab, where you can find online training and materials for free. Most of our tools are free, as well as all of the training is free as well. So there's about 50 lessons on our site right now that will take you through pretty much any product that Google has that you can then use and apply to your storytelling almost immediately. If English isn't your first language, we actually have, it's out of date, we have 50 lessons right now, and it's translated in about 13 different languages, and we're expanding those languages all the time. We also have a variety of different ways of learning. So we have these courses, which are more kind of like what you would expect. You take several hours to go through them, you learn everything from soup to nuts. But we also have this nick of time learning that we provide as well. So if you go into the tools section here, you can just learn a little bit about search, a little bit about maps. So if you're working on a project and you're like, man, I don't know how to drop a pin on the map and do the thing, you can find that out on our site as well. And there's also case studies and other examples that you can take a look at under the See Tools in Action section here. I feel like learning from how others have done things is always the best way to learn. So we take you through step by step how people actually created some of those pieces as well. Now, I was mentioning Google Trends, and I got a quick show of hands. Pretty much all of you have used Google Search before. Not so many of you maybe know about Google Trends. What Google Trends really is, if you want to check it out, you can actually check it out on your mobile device right now, or you can check it out on your laptop if you happen to have one. But google.com/trends is the site. There's about 3+ billion searches a day. I think it's 1.3 trillion searches a year on Google Search. That's an enormous amount of search traffic, right? When you go online to search for something, you guys lie to Google Search. You tell Google Search what you're really worried about. You're like, oh, I got this weird pain. I don't know what the thing is. Am I dying? You end up on WebMD and you spiral down into this like dark hole. And then you call your mom and you're like, I don't know what's wrong. She's like, just go to bed. You're fine. Don't do that. It's a terrible experience on search. But it's an honest experience, right? It's a pure experience. And I really do think that it's probably one of the most honest and pure data sets that you can have access to today. It's also quite immediate. So if you went back to Google Trends a couple of years ago, you were only able to get information day by day. You couldn't get it minute by minute. So we fixed that problem. We made it more relevant, more easy to access, and made it up to the minute as well. So we end up with stories like this. This is a data visualization that's actually taking a look at search traffic during one of the earlier elections, especially the Republican candidates, and taking a look at minute by minute how people were searching for each individual political candidate over time as that debate moved on. Right? So this tells me a few different things. It tells me that people are going online and things happen in the real world and they're searching for more information about them. It also tells me that there's a lot of wacky things that these politicians are talking about, which is causing people to kind of flip all over the place here to search for more information about them. This is another one that's actually one of my favorite visualizations. This is time, taking a look at what people were giving up for Lent. This was a little bit more involved, so this actually took a lot of different research. I'm from Colorado, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there, why people are giving up those things for Lent, but it's like things like chocolate and alcohol and all the usual suspects you would expect. But this gives you an interesting snapshot into human behavior, right? What people are concerned about or worried about or think that is a decadent thing to give up for Lent. Here's another one. This is actually another one of my favorites. This is taking a look at two different chunks of data from 2004 and 2015, and looking at searches for terms like stop gay marriage, or how many states allow gay marriage, or why gay marriage should be legalized. These are different search strings that people are looking at. This gets dangerously close to what I call sentiment analysis, which is like a whole field of study which I am currently pretty dubious of. I don't think it's really gotten to the point yet where we can determine if someone goes online and searches for a particular candidate, what that might infer or mean. But in this case, these particular search terms, there's, I think in general terms, you can get an idea for what people mean when they type in a word like stop gay marriage, or you can tell what they mean when they type in something like why gay marriage should be legalized. And you can see a shift over time. Either people are becoming more ambivalent about it, or they're actually just becoming a lot more liberal about it, which is cool, I think. This is just a particular type of visualization using those tools. This is looking at Nepal, right after the Nepalese earthquake, and taking a look at how people were searching for things like, how do I help Nepal, or help in Nepal, or aid in Nepal. And this is a particularly interesting visualization. I wish I had the animation of this, but this was looking over one day, a 24-hour period, and you can see as people woke up in the morning, they heard the news, they went online to search for something, different areas of the map would light up for people doing those searches. This gives me a lot of hope for humanity, because instead of people just, typing, something else, they're actually looking for how to help, how to get involved, how to get engaged in this particular story. You can find out more examples about Google Trends if you go to our Twitter account. We're constantly putting more information up there so you can see how other people are using this. We also put tips and tricks, and we also put all of our data sets up on our GitHub page. You guys have heard of GitHub, right? GitHub? Yes? I know Cindy's a fan. If you're not already on GitHub, check it out. It's 100% worth your time. Every data set that we create, every visualization that we create, we put up here for you to access and be able to use yourself, as many others. If you're interested in a screensaver, we have one of those too. So you can actually go to the Hot Searches visualizer. This visualizer will kind of flip back and forth as people are searching for these particular search topics. This was a screenshot from back when it was National Puppy Day, which is an awesome, awesome day. It should be every day. But you can download this on your computer and use this as a screensaver. I actually go into a lot of newsrooms and I see this screensaver up right next to Chartbeat and other resources. So people can just really quickly glance up and see what's going on in the world right now. What are people searching for? What stories might I want to be writing about? What search terms might I want to be including in my subject line or my the body of my piece, or in the captions of my piece, for example. So when people go online to search for that, they find my article. There's lessons on all this on our site too, so g.co/newslab. These lessons, again, if I didn't mention before, are free. So definitely check those out. I mentioned programs as well. This is another big focus area of our team. Verification and fact checking, as I mentioned before, is a big issue, something that we're focusing a lot more for 2017. We work with a group called the First Draft Coalition, which is an organization of verification and fact checkers around the world. We're providing resources, material, think, thought leadership, and other trainings about how to make sure that you're not getting duped by the news, or you're not putting out news that's unfactual, right? So best practices. Work with a group called Storyful and this program called YouTube Newswire. So user-generated content, when news happens, in most cases, it's not a journalist who's on the scene first. It's just somebody with a mobile phone, right? So there's a lot of video content that's being put out there. We call it user-generated content. But essentially what that is content that we've gone through. We've worked with Storyful. They've vetted and verified that that video did take place in that location, in that time, like that person said that it did. And then provide that to journalists so that they can use that in their work. Then we get into things like virtual reality, which is something that I'm super excited about. I started my career off as a photographer and a videographer. Actually, before that, I was learning how to cut and edit film, like actual film, which was by no means useful in my career as I got older. Actually, taught me a lot about editing. It taught me a lot about being organized. But virtual reality is this whole new medium, right? This whole new format of storytelling. So once you remove that frame, that 6x9 frame, or that 4x3 frame, Well, where do you put the camera, right? How do you deal with editing, cutting? How do you direct the attention of the viewer when you don't have a cut or edit the same way that you did with a framed piece of content? So there's this whole new language of film that's kind of developing right now. And this whole part of the industry is really only a couple of years old. The experts in this industry have only been doing it for a few years. So this is a really amazing opportunity for storytellers to jump into this new field of research, or this field of study, and tell really compelling stories. And there's devices, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, that allow you to do that relatively cheaply. This piece right here was called 6x9. This is a piece The Guardian did on solitary confinement. I'm a bit biased because we actually helped with this piece, but I think it's one of the best and most compelling uses of virtual reality yet in a journalism context. Solitary confinement is a really terrible thing that happens in prisons around the world right now, and it's something that's being addressed more and more. This virtual reality experience puts you into the experience of what it's like to be in solitary confinement. And it wasn't the video that was really the best part of this, it was the audio. I always told my students when I taught video production classes, it's not, people will forgive bad video, they will not forgive bad audio. And I think that still holds true today. Now, when you have a really immersive audio experience, that helps kind of complete that picture for you. So you have that virtual reality headset on, you've got your headphones on, you've got this amazing soundtrack that's going on, and you're there. You're in that experience, and it makes you feel something. So there's an empathetic quality to this content that I don't think is available in a lot of other formats. We asked the other day, is virtual reality going to replace 3D? That's a really interesting question for me. What that's pointing to are these different kind of leaps and jumps in technology. I don't see them as stopping points. I see them as continual. 3D is informing virtual reality. Virtual reality is going to be informing 3D. In the future, at some point in the future, there will be formats that we haven't even thought of yet. Right? It might be beamed right into our eyeball. I'm not sure. But 6x9 is really compelling. You can actually take a look on YouTube, search the 6x9 Guardian, you'll be able to pull that up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I mentioned Journalism 360. This is a group of experts from around the world that are working in journalism 360 video. You can go to our Medium account, medium.com/journalism360 to learn more about that and how to get involved. We also have this slide, which I think is a really interesting representation of where maybe the future of storytelling, the future of computing is going. If you guys remember back here, this is a computer. We used to access the internet back in the day. Actually, this is probably pre-internet. These are floppy drives. I actually learned how to code on this originally. I think it was like C or maybe like something like that. I don't remember the programming language. It's BASIC, I think it was. Yeah, it's ancient, right? I played a lot of Oregon Trail on that too. It's great. Then it became the web. We called it the web. Then it became the internet. Then it became the mobile web. Now it's things like augmented reality and virtual reality, right? So I think the future of computing is not going to be on devices that we hold in our hands. They're going to be things that we wear, maybe contact lenses, or other types of interfaces that we haven't really come up with yet. But they're going to be more immersive. They're going to be more interactive. People are expecting that already. They're expecting some kind of interface. I was reading an article recently that was talking about little kids and how they don't understand when you click on a picture in a magazine that it doesn't do something, right? So there's these interfaces and changes that are going on with the way that we can interact with information. There's some anxieties there, there's some things to be concerned about from an ethical standpoint. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well, especially when you think about accessibility. For folks who might have a disability of some sort, augmented reality would be a really amazing way to access information that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. But beyond that, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to tell stories through these formats. And I was mentioning earlier about Pokemon Go and how news happens someplace. If you have a mobile device, or if you have a device that knows where you are, and knows what happened in history, and it can connect those dots for you, now you have this really amazing resource that goes a little bit beyond just checking into a location, saying I was there, or voting, or rating a particular restaurant that you were at, and adding in some comments to it. This is a whole new way of interacting with the world around us and with data. We really kicked this off at Google back in 2015. I think it was around March of 2015 when we started doing 360 video. We kind of snuck it in there on YouTube and made that available. A lot of newsrooms kind of jumped on that immediately and were like, holy hell, we got to do something about this. 360 video, this is amazing. And then a bunch of other companies have popped up right around there. John was one of those. They got bought. Riot Films, they got bought. Over and over again, you see this happening where a startup develops an idea, develops a process. A news company says we need this as part of our in-house workshop, and they buy them and acquire them. I'm also seeing a lot of incubators start up within newsrooms where there's like one or two people that are working within immersive storytelling or virtual reality. and working with those. And I'm also working with other news organizations around the world to figure out low-cost ways of doing this type of work, being viewed in a hardboard viewer. You might have seen this on your mobile phone if you have the YouTube app. You can actually just hit the little cardboard button and suddenly it splits it into a stereoscopic view, which is the first step to immersive storytelling. There's a lot of expensive cameras that are out on the market right now, like the GoPro series of cameras. There's like 6 and 10 and 16 GoPro camera rigs that are really expensive. They take a lot of time. Each one of those cameras has a memory card. Each memory card has to be taken out of the camera. The footage has to be downloaded. It has to be organized. You have to edit that in post-production. There's different pieces of software like AutoCamo Video Pro, which actually just got bought by YouTube, or sorry, bought by GoPro, sorry. Recently, Video Stitch is another company which actually also just came out with a camera recently that live streams in 360, which is pretty amazing. But these are kind of like the higher end, deep workflows, like above 4K cinematic quality. Those are interesting, but the things that really excite me are these cameras here. This is a Ricoh Theta. It's about $300. Nikon Key Mission. They keep threatening to release this any day now. It should be out. I got mine on pre-order. Just waiting for it. This is actually a baby camera. It's called the Alley Home. I think it's like about $99. It shoots in 360. It's pretty low resolution, but like as an entry level, like just get into the market, kind of try and see what you can do with it. It's pretty cheap to do that. The LG 360, I've got one of those on the table right there. It's like the lowest quality camera ever, but you know what? It fits in my pocket. I can go anywhere with it. When news happens, I can pull it out of my pocket and shoot a 360 photo or a 360 video without having to deal with the post-production workflow and things like that. I call these backpack cameras. If you can put it in your backpack, turn it on, and then use it immediately, that has value to me. I also really like high quality, high production quality, expensive cameras, but like I just don't always have the ability to carry 4 or 5 boxes of gear with me everywhere. I see somebody's got an iPad on a tripod back here with tape that looks like attached to it. I love that. You know, that's innovation, right? You know, you don't need a $5,000 camera to go out and shoot 360 content. You just need a camera. Does anybody know what the best camera in the world is? Yeah, it's the one that you can have, right? I started out doing filmmaking with video by borrowing cameras from the film department. And then I borrowed a camera from a friend of mine. And I borrowed another camera from a different friend of mine. And that other friend got tired of lending me his camera. And then I finally saved up enough money to buy myself a camera. And then I had a slightly more expensive camera and a slightly more expensive camera after that. But I started small, right? I started just with what I had available and access to at the time. There's a lot of other cameras that are coming out on the market. I mean, I've got a shopping list for you guys that I can send to you. This one's actually really exciting here. This is a GoPro Omni that just came out recently. It automatically stitches these, links these cameras together so they're gen locked. So you don't have to worry about them being all out of sync. Unfortunately, it's a $1,500 camera rig. That's before you put the cameras in it. The cameras cost extra. So there's that. The Video Stitch Aura 4i was the one I was talking about earlier. So this is this company that created video stitching software mainly for like gigapan photo pixel things. Like so, like multiple images being shot to create one image and putting it together. Video Stitch. Then they moved into video production, and then they actually then created their own cameras. They didn't see a camera out there on the market that was good enough. So I'm really interested about this one because I think this is going to change live content fundamentally. So if you put a 360 camera and hang it over top of a concert, right, and then you can navigate around in 360 degrees live on YouTube, that's pretty awesome. Like, I would watch that. There's other cameras that Google are putting out too. There's whole camera systems. The Jump Rig, which came out recently, is a partnership with GoPro with 16 cameras that are linked together. The cool thing about the Jump Rig isn't the camera itself, which is also pretty cool, but it's the assembler. Basically, you upload all that content online and stitches it together for you, and it gives you a complete video afterwards. This is the future of, I think, where video production and content is going to be going. A lot of this stuff is going to be automated, but there's actually this really interesting sweet spot right now. A lot of these AV conventions that I go to, the people that are making the most money are the people that are doing the work that no one wants to do. Right? So a lot of these companies are just doing stitching. And they're just doing the post-production workflow and handing that off, because no one wants to do that work. So there's interesting niches within the market that are developing. I think also in the distribution end, one always has to be thinking about the user, the end user, the viewer, the reader. person experiencing the piece of content you're putting out, whatever you want to call that individual, there's some format that they're going to be experiencing that in. Right now, we've got these units over here, the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, the PlayStation VR console. They're expensive. They require a computer or some other device to plug into. Not everyone has that, access to that kind of thing, right? Cardboard is somewhere in the middle. I've got a cardboard device right here. What this allows you to do is take your mobile device, pull up a YouTube video, click that cardboard icon, slip your phone right into this. I don't know where my phone is. Slip your phone right into this, and now you've got yourself an immersive storytelling experience, right? Everyone has a smartphone now. The cardboard device costs maybe $5 to $10. You can download it, print it yourself if you want to. There's a lot of different manufacturers that are coming out with these, and this is just kind of the beginning, right? It's an interesting experience, and I think that the immersive quality of this storytelling is really great, but the story has to be compelling enough to want you to go from this, which is where most people are probably going to be experiencing 360, to something like this, and most certainly something like this, right? So story still matters quite a bit. Most people are going to be experiencing 360 from something like what we're seeing here, tapping and dragging on their phone. Now, if that story is compelling enough, if you're interested enough in that story, if you've done a good job as a storyteller, you're going to encourage somebody to want to put that into a more immersive experience and watch it over and over again, right? But the story has to be good. This is another way that people are going to be viewing those. We call this a magic window mode, so really just using your phone as a magic window into that virtual environment. This is that cardboard I was talking about. It splits it into stereoscopic, put it into a cardboard device, and you're off. And then we have things like Daydream, which just recently was announced. It's going to be released within a couple days. This is time for Christmas. Daydream is really the next step or evolution in virtual reality for Google. Right now, it just works with Pixel phones. So if you're in the market to buy a new phone, you're like an iPhone or Pixel, I don't know. Ask me, I'll have mine in a couple days, I'll tell you all about it. I'm really excited about the Pixel. I'm an Android fan. I'm also an Apple fan, but I don't use iPhones. I just think Android is doing a much better job, at least for my workflow. But I like them both, product agnostic. But the Daydream view is really interesting because this creates a new platform for storytelling. So not just 360 video, but fully rendered VR environments with the addition of a little remote control. So now you can interact and engage with that. It's not a passive experience, it's an active experience. Right? And I think it's going to fundamentally change how people interact with entertainment and with content. G.co/newslab is our website. If you guys have more questions or if you want to find more out about other tools that we have, I definitely recommend checking that out. Our Twitter account @GoogleNewsLab and our email newslabsupport@google.com. You can always feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Nick Digital. I post quite a bit about journalism. I post about travel, I post about cats. So depending on what you're interested in, there's a little bit of everything there for you guys. Before we kind of end for the day, I just want to show you guys really quickly. I need an assistant. Who's going to be my assistant? Anybody? You. There we go. You're too far away, sorry. All right. So I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to take a 360 photo. That's not a bad idea, though. Okay, good. So we've got the Samsung Gear 360 camera on the end of the selfie stick. This is the proper application of the selfie stick. There's an app on this device called the Gear 360. Go ahead and hold that, don't drop it. I'm going to go ahead and connect that camera with this phone. I'm going to have you go right in the middle there and hold that camera at about head level. Everybody look at that camera and say, yay, Mass Comm Week.
Yay, Mass Comm Week.
Okay, so that just took a 360 photo. It automatically stitched in the phone, and now it's available on this device for you to interact with. That's kind of the principles of 360, not you can see it. That's pretty much where we're at with this technology now. It immediately stitches on the device, and you can interact with it in 360 degrees without having to worry about all the post-production workflow. That's what I mean by a backpack camera. Like if you're in an environment that you're wanting to shoot 360 degrees, you don't want a bunch of technology, you want a bunch of gear holding you up, you want to be able to get into that scene really quickly, capture that image, and move on about your day. So there's a lot of different devices that are coming out like that. The Samsung is just one of them. The only downside to the Samsung that I see is that it's locked in with the Samsung ecosystem, so you have to have a Samsung phone. Just make sure it's not the Samsung with the Gear 7. Yeah, because that'll blow up, you don't want that one. But there's a lot of other cameras coming out on the market. What I would be paying attention to if you're interested in 360 content and getting involved with immersive storytelling, look for the cheapest camera that you can afford to get started with. Right? It doesn't need to be particularly amazing. Most people are going to be experiencing it on their mobile phone, so having a 4K image probably isn't that big of a deal, right? You know, looking for like a 180 or something like that, or HD at least is probably fine. But if you ever have any questions, I've got shopping lists I can send you. I'm happy to talk to you about VR and 360 kind of content all day. But right now, if you guys have any specific questions, I can open that up.
Yeah, we've got microphones coming around, and also if you could make your way to the middle, that'd be great too. I just have a couple questions before students, if, I don't know if we have any yet, but I love that you spent a lot of time on virtual reality and augmented reality. And I had a panel on Monday that talked about 360 video and virtual reality. And their big takeaway was the future of it is mixed reality.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a combination of that, 360. And so, obviously, I know the answer to this, but a lot of people think that 360 video and virtual reality is kind of bad. What are your
People thought
thoughts?
that about HD video too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, when I first started out in the industry, I was like literally editing and shooting film, 16 millimeter film. I was like one of my film production class was teaching us, which I thought was really exciting at the time until I got into the industry and realized like no one was using it. But some of the first jobs that I had was actually working on sets with directors of photography and filmmakers who've been using film for years and like, oh, HD's gonna get past that. That's not gonna catch on. No one wants to watch that. It wasn't crap, right? We're in very early days in all of this. And I think that what's exciting me most about the format is not the camera, it's not the editing and things like that. It's like it's actually new ways of telling stories. And I think that in a lot of cases, 3D, that was an add-on to existing ways of telling stories. I actually worked for a while at a flight simulator on the Trek Museum in New York City. So it was like you sat in this like multi-move, like you moved in like 6 different directions. You had smoke that would flash in your face and strobe lights that would go off. Those were all kind of gimmicks to me, and I kind of compared 3D to that. That was not a particularly new way of telling a story. 360 video, I think, is very much new. And to me, that's why I think that it's not going to die anytime soon. It's going to evolve, and I think it will move into things like augmented reality and mixed reality. But that format, that immersive sense, being able to see all the way around you and being able to interact in that space, I think that's where we're going to be at.
So, along with that, what do you see in 5-10 years being the future of this stuff? I know it's impossible to...
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tough question. If you just think about what's changed in the last 5 years, it's unbelievable. But, I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned about where the direction of storytelling is going to be going from the gaming world. Gaming has been, I mean, who here is a gamer? Who plays games? Yeah. I mean, like, gamers and gaming has been evolving the way people tell stories for years, right? Decades. I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that. And I think that, if anything, stories are going to become more immersive, more interactive. They're going to become more personalized. I think there's a lot of room for growth in that particular space so that that story isn't just the same story that you might be playing, that I might be playing through or experiencing. It changes based on the inputs that I'm providing it. I think location-aware apps are going to become more of a thing. So it'll know where you are, where you've been, where you might be thinking about going, and then changing the information that it's providing you from there. So I would say, if anything, it's going to be more interactive and more engaging in that way.
For a few minutes after the panel, if you have specific questions. Thank you again so much.